so I guess we can resume or continue the annual town meeting adjourned on Tuesday night, and therefore call the continuation of the town meeting to order. I do want to make a couple of announcements. I don't think I have to go over all the rules of procedure again, but I did, I think, neglect to talk about the fact that we have some different seating arrangements now, and that if you want to film or record the meeting, asking people to sit over in that section where Ms. King is, and visitors would sit in that section closer. I don't think we have any visitors right now, but if we do, I'd ask anyone who's a visitor, not in town, a resident voter in the town, if they could have a seat up here in the front. I think we're ready to start, and I think we should start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to, unfortunately I didn't get the names of the scouts that were with us last Tuesday night. I would like for a round of applause for the scouts and their... Derek Condon is the Scoutmaster. I'll get their names and report back at the next meeting. I guess I'll do it. Everyone please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Thank you all for coming out tonight. So we left off on Article 10, Madam Clerk? Yes. Article 10. To see if the town will vote to appropriate from the PEG access receipts reserved account the sum of $130,140, funds equal to 5% of Comcast's gross annual revenues in town for the first and second quarters of fiscal year 24, subject to receipt and availability, and authorize the Board of Selectmen and Town Administrator to expend and distribute said funds to Townsend Community Access Media, Inc. on a quarterly basis for the purpose of annual funding of the production and broadcast of public educational and government PEG access television on terms contained in a certain grant agreement between the Town of Townsend and the Townsend Community Access Media, Inc., effective September 15, 2020, or take any other action in relation thereto. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Shannon.
I make a motion move the town vote to appropriate from the PEG access receipt reserve account the sum of $130,140 equal to 5% of Comcast gross annual revenues in Townsend for the first, second, and third quarters of fiscal year 24, subject to receipt and availability and authorization the Board of Selectmen and the Town Administrator to expend and distribute said funds to Townsend Community Access Media, Inc. on a quarterly basis for the purpose of annual funding of the production, broadcast of public education and government pay access television on terms contained in a certain grant agreement between the Town of Townsend, Mass. and Townsend Community Access Media, Inc. effective September 15, 2020.
Second. Okay, motion's been made and seconded, and if I could raise my own point of privilege here. I think someone's left a telephone over here or something that's dingling. Oh, all right, Dave. Thanks. Okay, is there anything to be said? Okay. All right, looks like we're ready to vote. All those in favor of the motion on Article 10, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Article 11, to see if the town will vote to raise, appropriate, borrow, or transfer from free cash or available funds in the Treasury the sum of $5,000 or any other sum to defray the charges and expenses for the planning and execution of the town's 300th anniversary celebration to be held in the year 2032, or take any other action in relation thereto. Your motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $5,000 to defray the charges and expenses for the planning and execution of the town's 300th anniversary celebration to be held in the year 2032.
Motion's been made and seconded. Anything to be said? Looks like it's all right. In the third row, fourth row.
Victoria Janicki, 14 Old Battery Road. Just curious how we're going to use the money. It's, a few years before we're actually going to have a celebration and understand the usage.
Okay, the question comes on the motion. Mr. Slagle?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The town has for the last several years been putting aside $5,000 in free cash each year to create a fund for the 300th anniversary celebration. At this point in time, because we've got another 8 years, I don't think we have any specific plans. But there is going to be, my understanding, a 300th anniversary committee that will be working on the plans for that anniversary as time gets closer.
All right, I would like to make an announcement connected with this, if the meeting will indulge me. Everyone, I think, knows that next year we'll be celebrating the 250th anniversary of Lexington and Concord. And this is kind of a prelude to the celebration of 250 years of our American independence. So I think the town is foregoing any official celebrations of those events, but the Townsend Historical Society is going to be conducting events throughout next year and in 2026, hopefully culminating in a parade. So I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that. And also, as some of you may know, I'm captain of the Townsend Minuteman Company. And if anybody is interested in becoming a Minuteman and marching with us on Memorial Day or other activities, please get in touch with me, all right? Okay, thank you for that indulgence. I expect to see at least 5 or 6 of you after the meeting ready to sign up. 2 or 3, maybe. All right, anything else to be said? All right, all those in favor of the motion on Article 11, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it, unanimous. Article 12, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds in the treasury the sum of $8,000 or any other sum for the purpose of funding the assessor's fiscal year 25 periodic inspections and property data verification program as mandated by the Massachusetts Department of Revenue, Bureau of Local Assessments, or take any other action in relation thereto.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $8,000 for the purpose of funding the assessor's fiscal year 25 periodic inspection and property data verification programs as mandated by the Massachusetts Department of Revenue, Bureau of Land Assessment.
Thank you. That motion's been made and seconded. Any questions? Anything to be said? Yes, we're good. No? All right. Back there, we probably don't have anyone with, oh, Tom, you got
It's okay, this is a slide. The slide is off.
Oh, thank you. We have someone run on the slides for this? It's changed. Good. We got it. How'd you do that? Magic? Oh, okay. All right. This is high technology stuff. Okay. I guess that was point of order. Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. Unanimous. All right, Article 13. Terms of office, Council on Aging, to see if the town will vote to amend Chapter 22 of the General Bylaws entitled Council on Aging, Section 1 entitled Membership, Terms of Office, by deleting therefrom the word "or" and substituting the word "3", therefore, thus changing the term of office from 4 years to 3 years, or take any other action in relation thereto. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to amend its general bylaw, Chapter 22, entitled Council on Aging, as printed in the warrant.
Okay, there's a motion made and seconded. everyone has a copy of the warrant, right? So you see what the motion is, basically what I read. Any questions, comments? Ms. Calvin?
Veronica Calmetto Road. I'm on the bylaw committee, and all this change in the bylaw does is make the bylaw match what's actually in practice. The terms have always been 3 years for the council, 3 years for the Council on Aging office, not office, commission, but the bylaw says 4. So this just makes the bylaw match the practice, that's all.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kelman. Did anything else be said? If you folks up in the balcony want to speak and I don't see you, just ask Mr. Moderator, because sometimes all that light up there is blinding. But I think we're ready to vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes have it, unanimous. Article 14, fees under the scenic roads bylaw. To see if the town will vote to amend general bylaws of the town of Townsend, chapter 106, entitled Scenic Roads, section 106-5, entitled Fees, by striking out the first sentence thereof in its entirety, which presently reads, section 106-5, fees. The filing fee for an application required under this bylaw is $150, and by substituting for the following therefore, section 106-5 fees, an application required under this bylaw shall be accompanied by a filing fee as required by Appendix E to the consolidated rules of the Townsend Planning Board entitled Fee Schedule, or take any other action in relation thereto. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to amend its general bylaws, chapter 106, entitled Scenic Roads, as printed in the warrant.
Motion is made and seconded to adopt the language as printed in the warrant to amend the Scenic Roads bylaw. Any questions? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it, unanimous. All right, Article 15, noise control bylaw. To see if the town will vote, 1, to amend Chapter 1 of the general bylaws of the town of Townsend, entitled General Provisions, Article 2, entitled Non-Criminal Disposition of Violations, Section 1-1, entitled, I think that should be fine schedule and enforcing officers, by adding a new subsection O thereto as follows. I am not going to read that entire bylaw unless someone objects. All right, and we'll have to take a vote on that to see if the meeting wants me to read the whole thing. All those that want me to read the bylaw in its entirety, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. Okay, the noes have it. And the reason for that is it's a fairly common practice in most towns that the moderator will not read the entire zoning bylaw that's being proposed. And quite frankly, it's up to the town meeting whether they want to hear the entire motion read, adopting a new bylaw or amending a bylaw. However, that is going to be up to the meeting vote, whether they want to hear the whole bylaw read. The only caveat to that is that everybody, what is printed in the warrant, if the motion is made to adopt what is printed in the warrant, then we can do that. But if there's any variation in the motion from the warrant article, either there has to be a handout that everyone has possession of, or we will have to read the entire motion. Mr. Costa.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. If I could, I'd just like to raise a point of order. So the article that you read in part, which begins at the bottom of the pages aren't numbered, but that page of the warrant, you read Roman numeral lowercase 1, which amends section 1-1 of the existing bylaws by addressing enforcing officers in the fine schedule for noise control. But if you turn to the second page, there's lowercase Roman numeral 2, which is also part of the article. I would suggest that phrase at least be read, because there's 2 parts to this amendment, and that's the ensuing 5 pages.
Okay, so this is a 2-part article that's amending non-criminal disposition of violation and fines. Is that for the noise article particularly, or is that?
So, Mr. Moderator, the challenge here is that what the proposal is, as a part of Article 15, is to create a new noise control bylaw. But as part of that bylaw, it would only make sense to identify the enforcing officer for the bylaw and to identify any associated fine schedule. But the enforcing officer identification and the fine schedule is in an entirely separate section of the existing bylaws. So this article is doing 2 things. It's amending that existing section to identify the enforcing officer and the fine, and then it's creating a new section with the actual substance of the noise control bylaw.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Costa. Appreciate that. I think, does anyone have any questions about that? Okay, good. All right, so on whether or not I read the entire motion, or rather the entire article, all those in favor of my reading the entire article, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. No. Okay. The ayes do not have it. I'm not going to read this article, and I'm going to ask, is there a motion?
Yes, Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to amend general bylaw, chapter 1, entitled General Provisions, and to amend the general bylaw by adding a new chapter 83 entitled Noise Control as printed in the warrant.
Okay, all right, so same question. Those of you who want to hear the motion read in its entirety and not as printed in the warrant, please say aye. Aye. Okay, those opposed, say no. No. Okay, the noes have it. It is before you. Has everyone got a copy of the warrant with the bylaw in before them? Does anyone have any questions? And perhaps someone, oh, I know, we also need a report from the planning board. Is there a report from the planning board? Oh, it's a general bylaw. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, anything to be said? And either one of you guys, is that?
Dan Schmitz from 30 North Shore Road. So I'm just asking if the subsection or section 83-5 covers something like if we have a power outage and someone's running an open frame generator to say run an oxygen machine or run the furnace of their house. Is that covered there, or could they get fined the next day?
Question comes on motion about section 83-5 exemptions.
So if you look at 83-5 subsection F, so emergency work including but not limited to the operation of any mechanical device, apparatus, vehicle, or equipment used in connection with that emergency would protect any kind of emergency situation, so generators or any other emergency work that have to be done.
Comments come on the motion. Sir, did you want to speak? You're all set? All right, Ms. King? Tom, down here.
Thank you. Yes, I was noticing in the bylaw, there's a section about dumpsters being picked up in residential areas must be done. I can't remember if it says 6 or 7 a.m.
I'm concerned about that one because even though there's residential areas, there are multifamily homes or people that have dumpsters. And Shaw's, as far as I know, they do their dumpster run around 3 a.m. throughout the town, regardless of where the dumpsters are located. And I'm thinking that having this will disrupt Shaw's from being able to pick up the dumpsters during the time period that they usually do, and this will have to change their business practices, as well as, it's difficult, I can imagine that it's difficult to move a dumpster when people are trying to go to work and school buses and things like that, to be backing into residences, even the multifamily residences that have dumpsters. So I'm thinking I'm really concerned about that section of the proposed bylaw.
Questions come on. Motion regarding commercial trash collection hours. Is there anyone? All right. You want Eric or Veronica?
Well, I guess the question is, Eric, are you going to read section C?
Hold on. Ms. Kell, will you hang on for a minute? Okay.
Sure. Well, it's section G actually in 83-4, section B, commercial trash collection. Vehicles used for the collection of trash, rubbish, refuse, or debris, such as but not limited to commercial compactors, are permitted to operate on any point of public or common right-of-way for vehicular traffic between the hours of 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. Then it says exceptions. Commercial trash collection may take place at any time within any area of the town of Townsend zoned industrial zone I or commercial zone C under the zoning bylaw. So I think that addresses the concern.
Okay. Mr. Slagle.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, while this might actually impact if there are multifamily dwellings that have commercial trash pickup during in the residential neighborhoods in the middle of the night, this is typical and common practice across the Commonwealth with towns that have noise bylaws, is to prohibit the commercial dumpsters in residential areas during the sleeping hours. So I think any business that's been operating with commercial dumpsters understands that this is something they have to do as part of their business practices.
Comments come on the motion. Mr. Therian. Hold on. Bob, get a microphone.
Robert Therian, 181 Fishburne Road. I'd like to draw people's attention to the beginning of this article, item 1, enforcement, and item 2, the fine schedule. Regarding what's happening here with this article, the current article doesn't have an identifying enforcement agent. So the bylaw review committee decided to address that issue. I'm concerned that they decided that it should go under the Board of Health, when in reality it's really enforcing the first level of enforcement, I would assume, would be through the police department. If there were a complaint, it would probably go to the police department first, which just having a cruiser arrive would probably resolve the problem right there. Secondly, the health department is not available 24/7, much as the police department would be. And thirdly, further in the article, the reason it is so lengthy is because of all the scientific languages there and the definitions of them, and that's all taken, I assume, has been adapted from some other community's bylaw. If you consider that in a real application, it doesn't seem like it will be efficient in doing anything about a problem. So, for example, if there's a complaint on the 4th of July about too many fireworks, the health department would not be available. And then it would be the police that would have to respond to it. And if you read the whole language in the bylaw, it refers to decibel ratings, and which requires a decibel reader, which we don't have one, but we could purchase one. But currently, through discussions with the bylaw review committee, they anticipated that this would be taken from the health department and given to the Neshoba Board of Health to enforce because they have a decibel reader. So when you think about it in real terms of any type of complaint, it's not going to resolve a problem quickly. And it would be, in my perspective, very difficult to enforce. And even reading the article, it is very difficult to understand. So in that regard, I had recommended to the bylaw review committee to withdraw the article for further review. However, I wanted the public to understand and put this in a real everyday perspective. And so I do think we need a sound ordinance. However, this one, as written, does not seem, in my opinion, to be able to deliver what the intent is. Thank you.
All right, comments on the motion. I think Mr. Slagle may have some answers for you, Mr. Therian.
Sure. So, in conversations with the Board of Health agent who operates out of the Neshoba Board of Health, they regularly enforce noise ordinances and bylaws across their member communities. Every community that I'm aware of, including ones that I formerly worked at, had the health agents be the enforcement of the noise bylaw. While it is a best practice to have a decibel meter, which the Neshoba Board of Health has, I have a free one on my phone. They're easy to get. You can do rough decibel readings on your own with the microphone of an iPhone, and so any number of members of the Neshoba Board of Health could handle it. Also, unfortunately, in order to make noise bylaws like this enforceable, you have to have objective measurements and not solely subjective. So the reason why there are specific decibel limits are because they're easy to measure and it's not subject to someone's feeling or kind of whim about whether a noise is too loud or too annoying. The bylaw as written, I think, does a good job in giving the enforcing agent specific guidelines as opposed to something a little more wishy-washy. I mean, you want the Board of Health agent to go out knowing exactly what he has to measure and to be able to make a ruling on the spot as to whether something is a violation or not, and not be subject to different interpretations by different people. So those are the reasons why the bylaw is written the way it is, and I think that the enforcing through the Board of Health is not only common practice across the Commonwealth, but also one of the best and most well-equipped and most trained folks in the Commonwealth to do this sort of enforcement.
Thank you, Mr. Slagle. Mr. Sedano.
Moderator, next down, 5 Oak Street. My concern is that the new bylaw change could adversely affect the sporting clubs in town, and I'm wanting to address that. Part of it, we already have a law in place, why would we change it?
Okay, question comes on motion. How will this affect the sporting clubs? Ms. Kell?
If you look at the session, maybe.
Can you?
Oh, yeah. Please use the mic.
Veronica Calhoun. If you look at section 83-2, And you go down, it says therefore, number 4, no person shall discharge any gun, pistol, or other firearm in front of 500 feet of the dwelling, provided that this section shall not apply to the use of such weapons in the lawful defense of the person, family, or property, or in the performance of any duty required by law, nor to the firing of a salute or cannon or artillery by permission of the town administrator, nor to public or private shooting galleries, which would be sporting clubs, which have been inspected and approved by the chief of police. So if you have like regular sporting clubs around here that are approved and inspected and permitted, it's not an issue. You can't have a private one that hasn't been inspected by the police or permitted by the town. So it would affect that.
Mr. Sedano?
Thank you for that explanation. Concerning the fines for this excessive sound that can travel. I've been in Tivoli Park and heard this weapons shooting firearms on the far reaches of Ash Street. Somebody could easily complain and take out a complaint against the Spoils Club with this new sound ordinance, the new fees you're going to put in. This concerns me is that it maybe go too far. And we thought this all through.
Comments come on the motion, and we do have a few other hands up. I know this gentleman in the back, do you have your question, Doug? Okay, all right, well, Mr. Bueller, and then over there, Mr. Bueller.
Mike Mueller, Tyler Road. I have...
Hold on, Mike, get the mic.
Mike Mueller, Tyler Road. Years ago, I was on the planning board, and I have either authored or co-authored 3 of our current bylaws. I know the difficulty of writing bylaws. I prefer, this is very obtuse, I have tried reading this 3 times, and it's very difficult to follow. I would prefer it being in plain English. Another comment, as the lady had 83-2, there's 3 lowercase i's, 3 lowercase 2's. These all should be numbered so you don't have to guess at which one we're talking about. But in general, I would support a noise bylaw. We all know there are situations where there is really unwarranted noise. However, it's difficult to quantify this. For example, in here it says noise is 10 decibels above background. Well, Tyler Road, we have no noise at times unless there's a car going by. It's basically the noise of nature. I've got a rooster, standard size rooster, and his crow is ear piercing. And it's well above 10 decibels of ambient. But that's not those are not my main objections. This business of the gun issue. This is a public safety issue. 500 feet of the dwelling. This is already prescribed in these unconstitutional state laws that we have, oppressive regulation of our constitutional right to own and bear arms. And I don't know of any gallery that's inspected by the chief. Townsend brought it on. I'm a former officer of the club. We have very rigorous interview process for new members. They go through interview by the board, they go through interview by membership, they have to go through the orientation process, they get a gate card, and if their membership lapses or they're terminated, the gate card is disabled so they can't access the ground. We are very conscious of the neighbors. We have a self-regulating noise law of our own. There's no shooting before 9 a.m. and no shooting after sunset. It's very simple. And I just, this business of 500 feet, this is public safety, this is not noise. And I'll tell you, here is my fear, what I'm coming down to. This is a backdoor approach by the Board of Health to start regulating gun the noise issue. That's why I'm opposed to this. This is not a health issue. This is a public safety issue, and one less thing that we may have our liberties taken from, which is intentional or unintentional, or potential intrusion into more of our constitutional rights. These are reliable. You ask the police, they're not afraid of legal gun owners. They're afraid of illegal gun owners. And I would ask that this be voted down, have this section removed, have it put written in plain English so that an average person can read it.
Looks like the gentleman over there, I saw his hand earlier.
Hi, my name is Chuck Strong, Warren Road. I have many of the same concerns that Mike has. I've never had to look into the classification of a club like the Townsend Rod Gun Club as a gallery. Is there some place where that's defined, where a club falls under the name of gallery? That wording scares me. And as well, as Mike has said, we need to make sure that this is not an avenue to sneak in and find a way to close down our recreational sporting clubs. And I believe this bylaw as written should be voted down.
Not recognized, to be recognized, Mrs. Slavin.
So I do want to respond to one of the issues that was raised earlier, which is the section that specifically states no discharge of weapons within 500 feet of a dwelling is taken directly from an existing state law. So that law is already on the books in Massachusetts, so this is not something that, if adopted by Townsend, would in any way restrict the firing of weapons that is already restricted by the state.
Mr. Madden.
Hello, Nathan Matla, Brookline Street. Everybody, we are here to do the business of the town, and today I ask you to vote no on this article because I want to echo Mr. Bueller. There are a lot of inconsistencies in the way this is formatted. I really would have liked to see the changes rather than just the whole new proposed bylaw. So it's kind of non-transparent, and I can't in good conscience vote yes for something unless I know exactly what's changed. So, Mr. Town Administrator, Mr. Slagle, we do have a current bylaw on the books, correct? A noise bylaw?
There is no noise bylaw on the books. That is a completely new bylaw to be passed. So,
okay. So then I would say that this be gone through a little bit more meticulously, and come back, bring it back to the floor. Thank you.
Mr. Churchill.
Mary Jane Church from 292 Main Street. How bad is the noise? I mean, do we need this? How bad is the noise? I mean, can you answer that,
I guess I could say, in my time as town administrator, I've had multiple people ask me why the town does not have a noise bylaw.
Okay, but is noise, are people upset about the noise level? And what kind is it? Like, I think Marion talked about the firecrackers at the 4th of July. Yes, we're in towns, we're rural, we're not a Class A city. I can get it if we had high rises and people were, bombing their music and how is this going to affect the chainsaw? How is this going to affect the gun laws? How is this going to affect the party at graduation that's going to have a lot of music? And are people going to, is this going to affect those kids that are graduating at $100 each?
Questions come on the motion. And Mr. Smith, I couldn't tell if your hand is up or you're just resting it on the support there. Your hand is up. All right, Mr. Smith. All right. Motion's been made to move the question. This, if it passes, will cut off debate. All those in favor of moving the question, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. All right, the article is before you, and I think we're probably going to need the counters, but let's try it first time around. So this is a general bylaw, so it requires only a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion on Article 16, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. Those have it. All right, Article... Sorry, that was 16, right? Yeah. 15, 16. Okay, Article 16. New general bylaw for outdoor lighting. To see if the town will vote, 1, to amend Chapter 1 of the general bylaws of the town of Townsend, entitled General Provisions, Article 2, entitled Non-Criminal Disposition of Violations, Section 1-1, entitled, I think, Fine certain enforcing officers by adding a new subsection N thereto, and amending the general bylaws by deleting in its entirety Chapter 95, entitled Public Lighting, and substituting therefore a new Chapter 95 entitled Outdoor Lighting as follows. And I'm not going to read the article in its entirety. And is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to amend the general bylaw, Chapter 1, entitled General Provisions, and amend its general bylaw, Chapter 95, now entitled Public Lighting, but to be entitled Outdoor Lighting as printed in the warrant, but as further modified by the town meeting handout from Article 16.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to adopt the article as printed in the warrant, except as modified by the handout. Does everybody have the handout on Article 16?
Mr. Moderator, the warrant that was prepared for everyone to print out has the amended version in it.
Oh, the handout has the amended version?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right. Mike. Mr. Brown.
Hi, I'm Michael Brown of Gilchrist Road. I am also a member of the Bylaw Review Committee. This proposal for outdoor lighting is a modification of existing bylaws, so it's not a new bylaw. It basically incorporates most of the existing requirements that we've had. So Townsend has regulated outdoor lighting going back at least to 1978. And the most recent version of our policies on outdoor lighting was enacted in 1997. I believe Mr. Mueller was on the planning board at the time, among others. Basically, let me just very briefly explain what the current bylaw is, and then I'll explain what's being changed. So the current bylaw has 4 goals. And by the way, none of this is going to change. The revised version would have all of this. So there's 4 goals. One is to reduce glare, and that really translates into improved safety. So reduction of glare, minimization of light trespass, which is the phenomenon of light going from one property to a neighboring property, or basically the concept is direct light where it's needed and try to avoid throwing light where it isn't desired. The third goal is to reduce sky glow. So people always talk about the rural character of Townsend. One aspect of that is our relatively dark skies, something not experienced by most people who live in bigger communities or closer to cities and so on. Finally, the goal is to save energy by having light that's directed where it's needed. You're not wasting energy. So how does the bylaw meet these goals? There's basically one major requirement in the current bylaw, and this would remain in the updated version, and that is that lights should be fully shielded. So the technical term is full cutoff But it just means that the light does not go above the horizontal, it goes down, but it doesn't go up, it doesn't go sideways. That's essentially it. There's a second requirement that limits the height of lights. So the maximum height is 25 feet, and there are lower limits if you're right near a property line. And that way, even a shielded light, if it were right on the property line, could throw light on the neighboring property, and that would be undesirable. So there is this height limit. I just want to point out that neither the current bylaw or the proposed updated version has any limits whatsoever on how many lights you can have, how bright they can be, or where you can put them. Basically, the requirement is to shield the light, so it just, goes where it's needed. Also, there are a number of exemptions which are going to remain. This bylaw only applies to relatively bright lights, so the typical light that you would be putting on your porch, or a security light on the side of your house, typically would not be bright enough to be regulated by this bylaw. There's a limit expressed in lumens, and only if you're above that limit, that doesn't even apply. So that's basically what we have now, and I'll just quickly go through what we're proposing to revise. The revisions, the purpose of doing this, when we reviewed this in the bylaw review committee, we found that there was some room for making it clearer and making it more flexible. So it'll actually be easier to implement, easier to comply with if these changes are approved. So first of all, currently there are two separate bylaws. One applies to private lighting, one applies to public lighting. And there have been situations where that's caused some confusion. The question is, well, what exactly does private lighting mean? What's public? Which one is going to apply to a particular situation? If this is adopted, we're going to have one bylaw that applies to all lights, if it's not exempt. Public, private, doesn't matter. So it apply to industrial, commercial sites, residential, if they were to happen to have a light bright enough, it would be typically true of residents. Town buildings, schools, all of it would be covered by the same requirements. The new version would be more flexible. In particular, I'll draw your attention to the height limits. That has been found to be sometimes impractical. So, if you're close to the property line, there's a formula that would limit the maximum height of the light to a fairly low level, and often that's not really practical. So now, under the new version, what we came up with was you can either meet the height limit, or you can alternatively meet limits on light intensity that would be measured at the property line. It's easy to measure, and that could be, if a light were out of compliance, it could easily be corrected by redirecting the light away from the property line or installing a shield. There are various ways it could be. This is a lot easier to comply with than the current strict limit on height of the light. And that's really it in a nutshell. There's a couple of things in here that are issues that were not contemplated in the last version of the bylaw 27 years ago. In particular, for example, now that LED lights are so prevalent, there's been an issue of the color of the lights. So as you may have noticed, when LED lights are very much on the blue end of the spectrum, it can be quite severe glare. As a matter of fact, the American Medical Association has actually come out with a recommendation to municipalities not to use very blue lights. So we have a requirement in here that future lighting installations would have a limit on color temperature, which is really a mechanism to specify, to try to avoid that very harsh blue light. And that's to avoid the potential health effects of light at that end of the spectrum, as well as potential glare. Also, one other requirement would be that in future building projects where a building permit is being applied for, the proponent of the project would submit information on any outdoor lighting that would be included in the project. That's sort of a common sense thing that would help the building inspector to determine if it's going to be in compliance. It's better to do it in advance with the permit application than
after the lights are installed. So that's basically it. In a nutshell, it's all of the provisions of the current bylaw would remain, the definitions, the regulations, the exemptions, all the same with the changes that I mentioned. We're consolidating 2 bylaws into one, adding some stuff to make it more flexible and easier to comply with, and making it clearer. And I'll add one more thing, and I think this may be the most important part. If you look at the article, at the end, there are a series of diagrams, and to me, that's a really great improvement because it will help everybody here, and as well as a future building inspector, to really understand the type of lighting that is consistent with this policy, or, is or is not consistent with the policy. So I think that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Presentation and questions on the motion. In the front.
Jacek Kostanowski, 16 Elizabeth. I tried to read this proposal and I think I was having a hard time. It's extremely detailed and it's very restrictive. The light color that was just mentioned a moment ago is limiting our choices to 2700 Kelvin. If you go to a store like Home Depot, that's the lowest end of the spectrum. There are specialized sources which are lower than 2700, but in general 2700 is pretty much what you can get in the average store. So that's first limitation. The other limitation is what we already actually have in the existing bylaw, which says that light fixtures should be so placed or hooded that the light source itself shall not be directly visible at any point beyond the lot lines of the premises illuminated. I think, maybe I'm wrong, but from my observations, majority of properties in Townsend already violate this statement. I can see light sources of other properties when I walk around, and I shouldn't be able to do so. So, unless we intend to apply for a dark sky community certification, and that's a real thing, and it's an international movement, or unless we intend to move or create some kind of astronomical observatory in Townsend, which would be an astronomical mistake in my opinion, I don't really see the reason to go into such a detailed bylaw. So maybe I can actually stop at this point. Thank you very much. For that reason, I'm against it.
Questions come on motion or comments come on the motion? Mr. Brown?
Hi, I can respond to the issues that were just raised. First of all, regarding the color issue, the limit is 3,000. It's not 2,700. Many lights, it's very easy to get a light that's at 3,000. That basically just excludes, blue light. It includes, it goes from white to kind of everything from white light to the warmer part of the spectrum. And also, I'll remind you that this only applies to very bright lights. So the typical, residential property would not have the light that would be limited by this because it's not going to be bright enough to be subject. So it would apply, for example, to a parking lot where, LED lights are being put in. And yes, we are saying we prefer that it would be not blue lights, we prefer 3,000. Now, the town has been following this policy for many years. All of the projects, the street lights that were installed about 5 years ago, all of the projects for energy conservation that have been implemented with green community grants, which involved exterior lighting, fire stations, all of the schools, and so on, has been 3,000 K or less. And there was no problem getting those lights, and in fact, I think they look really good. Now, as far as the the thing about not seeing light off the property, it's true that practically no light meets that standard. That is not the current bylaw. The current bylaw is included in this. So most of what you're seeing here is the current bylaw. It's just that we're consolidating the public and private bylaws into one. And again, the requirement is to shield the light. It doesn't say it can't be visible at all at the property line. It just has to be shielded. That's the requirement. So if anything, adopting this proposal would take the current bylaw and make it more flexible and easier to comply with.
Comments come on the motion. I think it's up to Mr. Shepherd if you want to first defer.
Just a question.
Mr. Ryder?
Can you hear me now? A question relating to historic lighting in historic districts, like the lights on our bridge over on South Road, or the light that shines all the way up, things like that. Is there any carve-outs for historic districts, historic buildings that might want to have, things as they were as opposed to modern lighting?
Question comes on the motion. Mr. Brown, try to respond to that.
In answer to that question, there's not a specific exemption for historic type lighting. However, there are many types of historic lighting that would meet these standards. For example, now the lights that are on the South Street Bridge does not comply, although they're not bright at all, so it's quite possible that they're below the threshold for even being regulated. But if they're very bright, yes, the intent is that they should be shielded, and there are all kinds of historic lighting that meet that requirement. So there would be no reason to say, oh, we have to pick, the type that is not shielded. We could easily pick the type that is shielded and achieve that historic, atmosphere.
So kerosene lamps are safe. Okay. Mr. Shepherd.
Thank you, Gary Shepherd. My question, and maybe it's tucked in here somewhere, but for the existing businesses, the existing homes, the existing lighting that's in town, does that now have to comply, or is it pre-existing non-conforming? Or if they lose a light or they lose a ballast, does then that have to comply, creating some disparity in the lighting program, whether it be in a parking lot or on a building?
Question comes on the motion regarding its grandfathering the lights. Mr. Brown?
Any light that is lawfully installed before we adopt this would not have to meet any new requirement. So in terms of shielding, theoretically, anything installed, since probably 1978 should have been shielded. So we don't have a specific grandfathering of that requirement, but anything that wasn't, that's new here in this proposal, such as the color, temperature, would only be effective upon replacement of a light or installation of a new light.
Comments come on the motion. Mr. Shepherd?
Wasn't as clear as I hoped it to be, but it sounds as though that provided it meets the current lighting bylaw, or this proposed lighting bylaw, that it will be sustainable as it is. But I know we've got metal halide lights in town and a variety of sodium lights in town. Those probably will not meet this criteria. So under this amendment, will they have to be changed?
Question again comes on motion. Mr. Brown?
If it complies with the current bylaw, it would not have to be changed. As far as metal halide, or I don't know what the color temperature of metal halide is, but in any case, only when it's replaced or it would be newly installed would it have to meet the new requirements.
Comments come on the motion. Mrs. Barrett?
Mary Barrett, 38 Highland Street. I just want to specifically ask, will this affect the school and its parking lot in its current situation. They're already strapped for cash, so I didn't know if this would affect them.
Question comes on the motion. Mr. Brown?
I'm assuming actually, it doesn't matter which school you're referring to. If you're referring to the high school, the school parking lots actually comply with the current bylaw. So let's focus on the high school. Those are actually excellent lights, very well shielded. They are full cutoff lights, so they meet the bylaw, and there wouldn't be any need for the school to change them.
Comments, answers, come on. Questions? Sir, in the middle back there.
Bill Goodhue, 227 South Road Lane. 900 lumens is a 60-watt light bulb, and I'm an old guy. I need light. Floodlights, I'm going to have to replace them all at 60 watts. I mean, a 100-watt floodlight isn't that big a deal. I don't think. I'm sorry.
Question comes on the motion. Mr. Brown again.
You're not prohibited from installing a floodlight. I mean, that is right, but, yes, some floodlights would be subject to regulation. So if you would install a new floodlight, for example, and it was above 900 lumens, and you're correct, I don't know how many watts, but 60 watt, equivalent, incandescent, all you'd be asked to do is to pick one that's shielded. In other words, not an uncontrolled, because an uncontrolled floodlight at that level of brightness, could adversely affect neighboring properties. And so, yes, and that's a current requirement. So that's nothing new. That just carries over from the current bylaw into this new version, which is simply a consolidation of public and private lighting requirements.
Comments come on the motion. Ma'am?
I'm Carol Hofstas, 14 Alyssa Drive. I have a question. Since I'm technically challenged and I don't know one lumen from another, but on your picture list here, it looks like my lights are unacceptable. Like, that looks like a picture of the floodlight on my garage and the little light on my lamp post. So does this mean if my light bulb goes out, I have to replace the lamps? I don't understand this whole thing.
Mr. Brown, I suppose you didn't expect a Spanish Inquisition. Go ahead.
Changing a light bulb is not subject to the bylaw. It applies when you replace a light or install a new light. So, that's when you would have to meet the requirements. And again, if it's a new light and you're putting in a floodlight, it can be as bright as you want, it can go anywhere you want, but it should be shielded, at least for the future installations.
Gentleman in the back. Right there, in the back.
Mike Kelly, Taurus Lane. Two questions. One, if you drive around town, there's some blue light bulbs and some of these fixtures that are outside. Using the word blue, are we supposed to replace those? And the second question would be, I do a lot of design for security systems for businesses, and white lighting outdoor is very important. And I know there's been some struggles of getting business into town, but I think this bylaw would kind of affect some of the perimeter security some of these businesses are supposed to put in. Some of them have corporate standards. My concern is that white light, which is encouraged because obviously it's a lower energy consumption, but we encourage the light to pass the property perimeter itself to detect people coming across. So I'm a little concerned that that may affect some businesses trying to move in.
On the motion, I don't know if, is any... Mr. Snake?
Snake, 264 South Road, move the question.
Second.
favor of moving the question, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. All right, it is for you. This is a town bylaw requiring a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. All the counters are there. Yeah, I don't think it's safe to rest from last Tuesday night. But I think maybe we're going to ask the counters to come forward. And if I could, John and Brian, if you could count, just as I'm going to switch this up a little bit, and ask if you guys could count this section and the bell, all right? And if you guys count this side of the hall and the stage. If you can count together if you guys could. And okay, all those in favor of the motion, please stand.
Somebody else is doing this. We just have to do that.
You guys just count this side of the stage. Okay, all those that want to vote in opposition to the motion, please stand. Okay, all right, can I see? All right, all those in favor for the motion were 39, and those opposed were 61, so the motion does not carry. This is to Article 17. Thanks, everyone. We're almost there to the end now. Town Affordable Housing Trust bylaw. See if the town will vote to amend the general bylaws of the town of Townsend, chapter 140, entitled Townsend Affordable Housing Trust. And I'm not going to read the whole article, but as I presume written in the warrant. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to amend its general bylaws, Chapter 140, entitled Townsend Affordable Housing Trust, as printed in the warrant.
All right. Is there anything to be, there was a second, right? Okay. All right. Anything to be said? Ms. Kell?
Veronica Calmetto Road. I'm on the bylaw committee. This Article 17 merely corrects typographical errors that exist in the Townsend Affordable Housing Trust bylaw that was passed at town meeting last year, Chapter 140. There were some typographical errors, so it does not remove the bylaw from our charter, it merely corrects the typos. So Mass General Law, Chapter 4, Section 48, should have been typed as Chapter 4, Section 4B. Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 5C is referred to in the bylaw, and it should have been Section 55C. And in another section, Section 15 of the bylaw, it referenced Article 7, Article 13, and Article 12, and those should have been Section 8, Section 14, and Section 13. So the purpose of this is just to correct those typos. That's it.
Let's come on the motion. Yep.
Jacek Mostanowski, 16 Alisa Drive. Thank you for this explanation. Mr. Moderator, I have a simple question. Where can this bylaw be found? I was really trying to locate this on the Townsend, Massachusetts website, and I failed. So it's very difficult to provide any judgment on the proposed changes if the original text is not available. Thank you.
Question comes on the motion. Mr. Sexton-Duranian.
Thank you for the question. I'm going to defer through you, Mr. Moderator, to Ms. Cal afterwards, but I do believe that it has not been published in the E-code as of yet. It was voted on the last meeting that we had, and it never got into E-code, however that happens. Am I correct in that?
Veronica Calmetto Road. Yeah, that's correct. There are things that haven't been added to the town's E-code. Just backing up a little bit to special town meeting, there was an article to appropriate $14,500 to update our E-code, and it failed. So I'm not exactly sure how this gets into the E-code, but if you look in the booklet, the annual report, it has last year's town meeting minutes in there, and if you want to see it, you can just open that book and it's in there, because last year's town meeting warrant is in the annual report.
So correct me if I'm wrong, the town, this is a general bylaw, right? It's not on the website?
Mr. Moderator, that's correct. I have E-code up as we speak. E-code is careful in its publication in all municipalities where it publishes the code to state that it's not an official version of the code. In fact, I think you can see in the town clerk's desk, there's a bound version of what is the official version of the code. So if town meeting or special town meeting adopts a change to a general bylaw or even to a zoning bylaw, that is sent to the Attorney General's office. When the Attorney General approves it, it is then posted as the law requires, and then it becomes effective. Municipalities that use E-code will then send a copy of that to E-code, presuming that they have the funding for E-code to continue to update the code on an annual basis, and the E-code publishers will add it to the website. But the previous speakers are correct that at present, Chapter 140 of the general bylaws, which is the Affordable Housing Trust bylaw that was adopted last fall, is not yet published on the E-code website.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Costa. All right, it is before you. Anything else to be said? think we're ready to vote. All those in favor of the motion on Article 17, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. Article 18, amendments to regulation of accessory apartments.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend the zoning bylaws, Chapter 145, Section 145 through 36, entitled Accessory Apartments in Residential Districts as printed in the law.
Everyone has a copy of the warrant. Are there any questions, any explanations? Mr. Slater.
I just need to read the report from the planning board, if that's okay. To read the report to the planning board of the zone.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. You're right now.
On May 7th, 2024, from the planning board to annual town meeting, subject report to annual town meeting for the 2024 town meeting record. Proposed zoning amendment, Article 16, Section 145-36, entitled Accessory Apartments in Residential District. Warrant Article 18, submitted by the Bylaw Review Committee. In accordance with General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 5, the Planning Board held a joint public hearing with members of the Bylaw Review Committee on Monday, April 1st, 2024, to review a proposal submitted by the Bylaw Review Committee to amend zoning bylaw Article 16, Section 145-36, entitled Accessory Apartments in Residential District. The Planning Board voted unanimously to recommend adoption for the following reasons. Number one, the Bylaw Review Committee submitted the proposed amendments to Section 145-36 of the Townsend zoning bylaw to the Board of Selectmen for the 2024 ATM warrant as part of their charge of reviewing the codified bylaws of Townsend. The board received no verbal or written opposition to the proposed changes from the public at the public hearing. Number two, the board found that the proposed changes to the accessory apartment bylaw in residential districts consist of administrative and clarification edits. Upon review of the merits of these proposed changes, the board found the intent is to reduce redundancy in the application process and create a more efficient process for applicants. Number three, under the District Local Technical Assistance Grant Program, the Town of Townsend has executed a contract between the town and the Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission to survey the citizens and use that input with technical assistance to update the accessory apartment and residential district bylaw. The goal is to provide further amendments at a future 2024 town meeting. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Slagle. All right. Is there any questions or comments on the motion on Article 18? Because we're ready to vote. Oh, question down here. Tom.
George Morris, Edward Brook. How does that affect already existing apartments?
Question comes on the motion. Mr. Slagle?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Because this is a zoning bylaw, pre-existing apartments are grandfathered in under the pre-existing bylaw.
Questions and comments come on the motion. I think we're ready to vote. All those in... No, Mr. Therian.
I am a member of the planning board, and you will see that the board voted to recommend this revisions being requested here. What's not being discussed is other parts of that conversation that I think the public should be aware of. So, as a member of the planning board, we do agree with the changes being made and why they are being made. But it's the article in itself and the reference to affordable that has created some difficulties, and I need to explain them to you. definition. So when applicants apply for an accessory use apartment, once it's granted, they are bound to mass fair housing requirements if the occupant of that apartment no longer remains a relative or relationship with the family. So that means at that time, when the application is applied for and granted, there's a limit on the term of the permit, which is, I believe, 5 years, which means it should be renewed. In the event the apartment is vacated by the...
Point of order.
What's the point of order? Although the speaker is correct in regards to affordable accessory apartments, there is no changes that have anything to do with the affordable portion of this bylaw.
I recognize that, Mr. Chairman.
I think his point of order is well made, quite frankly. I was hoping to see where you were going with this, Bob. I don't think it's germane to have an entire discussion about the terms of the accessory apartment bylaw. So if you can get to the point really quickly.
Well, so tonight you're being asked to approve the current bylaw to make it more efficient and workable and for clarity. I was just trying to update the public on what's not visible in the article regarding affordable housing. And I conclude my statements. Thank you.
I appreciate the offer, Mr. Therian, but I think we do want to keep to the matters before the town. So, and the price will raise more questions. So, in the third row, fourth row.
Hi, Victoria Janicki, Old Battery Road. Just want to know, is it still the maximum 900 square foot in the bylaw? That hasn't changed? It's either 900 square foot or 35%. Do we get rid of the 900 square foot?
All right, question comes on the existing bylaw. If there's any change to that, Ms. Kell?
Veronica Calmino Road. I'm on the bylaw committee, and Bill Cadigan was also the chair of the bylaw committee, and he's on the ZBA. He wasn't able to be here tonight, apparently, but he did send me something to read. So this addresses I believe it's 3 changes that are being made. I thought that perhaps the planning board article would cover it, but because there seems to be a question. The goal of the ZBA, okay. This article makes changes to the accessory apartment bylaw, 14536, and it's fixing a few problems that the ZBA has encountered in issuing special permits for this use. Some changes were made to the bylaw by the planning board a few years ago that resulted in some confusion in the process. The goal of the ZBA in issuing these permits is to have a usable permit at the end. The Board of Health has been supplying reports to us regarding any changes to the existing septic systems they require, but the bylaw appears to require that the septic system upgrades be complete before the permit can be issued. This wording is being fixed, so that they just need to know that the Board of Health says, yeah, it can be done, but once they get the permit, they do the changes, not before. In addition, there's been some confusion about adequate means of ingress and egress to the accessory apartment, and the ZBA is not experts on the building code, so we are asking for a note from the building department that these proposed means of ingress and egress are compliant. This will prevent us from issuing a permit that bounces at the building department, wasting a lot of time. Finally, the size of the apartment in the current bylaw is limited to a maximum of 800 square feet. The old bylaw would permit a larger apartment, and the permit was only valid for 5 years. Thus, it is possible that a permit could be renewed that has a larger apartment. So we are adding a phrase that the applicant would not have to reduce the size of their apartment, to comply with the new bylaw. Thank you.
Okay, comments come on the motion. Anything further to be said? Mr. Therrien.
This bylaw has been reviewed by the bylaw review committee as well as the planning board. And in the discussions from the planning board, there was a consensus that the square footage was being addressed, and I believe they felt that it could be allowed up to 900 square feet, and no more than 50% of the existing footprint, occupied space of the building. That doesn't seem to appear in this warrant article, but based on the planning board's review, we felt that with the current social situation with elderly parents having children move in with them, and a lot of situations where parents are giving their homes to the children and plan to move into an accessory unit. So the increase in square footage we felt should be related to the size of the existing structure and the occupied space. So the board felt that a 900 square foot limit was acceptable, or some revisions that would base it on a percentage of the occupied space. Those were just comments that came from the board. I don't know if anybody wants to think about them or address them. Thank you.
Any comments coming on the motion? Mr. Page.
Move the question.
Okay. We can do that unless we can just vote on the article. Are we ready to vote? Okay, I think we are ready to vote. Thanks, John. All right, all those in favor of the motion, and this is a zoning bylaw, so it requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of the motion on Article 18, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. I'm going to rule that that does carry by a 2/3 vote. Article 19, fees for large-scale mounted solar installations, ground-mounted solar installations. See if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaw of the town of Townsend, being Chapter 145 of the Town Code, Section 145-86, entitled Large-Scale Ground-Mounted Solar Installations, subsection C, entitled General Requirements for all large-scale ground-mounted solar power generation installations, by striking therefrom in its entirety Item 3, which presently provides for a $300 fee, and substituting instead a reference to the consolidated rules of the Townsend Planning Board for the fee schedule. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to amend its zoning bylaw, Chapter 145, Section 145-86, entitled Large-Scale Ground-Mounted Solar Installations, as printed in the warrant.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. Anything to be said? And planning board report.
Mr. Moderator, report from the planning board, May 7th, 2024, from the planning board to the annual town meeting for the record. Subject, report to annual town meeting, proposed zoning amendment, Article 16, Section 145-86C, entitled General Requirements for all large-scale ground-mounted solar power installations. Warrant Article 19, submitted by the planning board. In accordance with General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 5, the planning board held a public hearing on Monday, April 1st, 2024, to review a proposal submitted by the planning board to amend zoning bylaw Article 16, Section 145-86, renewable/alternative energy, Section C, entitled General Requirements for all large-scale ground-mounted solar power installations. The planning board voted unanimously to recommend adoption for the following reasons. Number one, The proposed amendment will remove the planning board application filing fee from the text of the bylaw and include it in the Appendix E Planning Board Fee Schedule table added to Chapter 175 Planning Board Regulations in the Code of the Town of Townsend. Number 2, the proposed change will allow for application fees for ground-mounted solar installations to be changed through the typical process of amending the fee schedule through a planning board public hearing and board vote. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Slagle. So the matter is before you. Any questions, comments? Fairly self-explanatory, I guess. I think we're ready to vote. All those in favor of the motion on Article 19, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. The ayes have it by 2/3. Article 20, deletion of the outdoor lighting provisions in the zoning bylaw. Yep.
I believe in light that Article 16 was voted down, you should remove Article 20 from the agenda. Again, Jacek Konstanowski, 60 Dalisson Drive, sorry. But in light of the fact that we voted down Article 16, I believe Article 20 should be removed from the agenda, or we may end up without any bylaw.
Quite correct. And I think there was anticipation, you're anticipating, I think, a motion to take no action. So I'm going to construe your motion as a motion to take no action, which is when we say, I will second that. We're not going to do anything. That's what you're going to do, Chad? Okay. Was there a second? You seconded it. Okay. All right. So the motion is to take no action on Article 20. I think we're ready to vote, right? All those in favor of the motion to take no action on Article 20, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. The ayes have it.